Hello everyone, this is Jotto and welcome to Versus Series, where someone from my team, Acebreakers, plays against a well-known or up-and-coming pro player. Now for this week we do have from Acebreakers, Dapperatchik, who will be playing against the one and only Colma. Now Colma is fairly well known for his Tempo Warrior list on Hearthbone. He's also come up with some of the other sort of odd decks around there. There's a aggro rogue with a blood knight. There is a token druid. He's a very well known deck builder, and he also does some YouTube stuff, so I'll put his YouTube channel in the description. Now quickly before we start, just a quick shout out to Mass Enchant, who are doing tournaments again for NA at the moment, but eventually we'll be doing them for EU as well. It's actually made up from a lot of the guys who were running the Mana Grind tournaments, so they're pretty experienced with what they do, and I would very much encourage you guys to go check them out, and I'll put their website in the description below. But anyway, on to the games. So, starting off, we have for Dapper, or Dapperatchik, Dapper for short, we've got a deck he's called Colma Huntard, which is fairly amusing. Anyway, this is a Hunter mid-range deck. Now, this Hunter mid-range deck has a couple of interesting things about it. Most Hunter mid-range decks are different, that's why it's interesting to look at them. We do have the standard sort of double web spinner, double creeper, double buzzard unleash. That's pretty normal. The things that are interesting is we've got the one Snapjaw, which is fairly standard at the moment actually. For a while people were running two. One Kodo, no Tundra Rhino in this deck. Instead playing the Loatheb, which I actually think is slightly stronger. Loatheb is absolutely crazy at the moment. The rest of the tech cards we got are Direwolf Alpha to help out a bit with Haunted Creeper and also with Unleash combos. Singular Timberwolf. This is probably a concession to consistency as opposed to power, because getting two in your hand can be really bad. Rest of the stuff we've got that is interesting, we've got one Hyena, again sort of for consistency base, you don't want two in your hand, and the one Ironbeak Owl, probably to deal with Nerubian eggs and also sludge belchers and things like that. So we've got a bit of a teched up list here. As I said, pretty much all Hunter lists are different, so it's very interesting to see versions that people come up with. On to Colma, who is opening with Warrior Tempo. Now Warrior Tempo is a deck which I don't get it, okay? I don't understand how he wins with this deck. But he does. That's one of the reasons why he's so well known, and one of the reasons why he's so good at the game. He is by far the best Tempo Warrior player in the world. He's one of the only people who can actually get the deck to work. So very excited to see him play a game with it in an actual show match. Now this particular version is his updated version, which is actually on Hearthbone actually. So we've got the one Armor Smith, one Slam, and this is post Nax, so we do have one Loot Hoarder as well, one Spellbreaker. The Spellbreaker is probably for eggs and things like that. Double Arcanite Reaper, because this is pre-construct quarter, so no Deathbite in this deck. Then we've got the Singular Azure Drake, a Loatheb, a Kodo. A Kodo is very interesting right now. There's a lot of low attack minions, so Kodo is an interesting metagame choice at the moment. I think it's quite good. And the one Grommash Hellscream. Now Grommash Hellscream does give the deck a bit more late game and a bit more damage it can push in the late game, because you do have the double Inner Rage and also the double Cruel Taskmaster to enable it, since this deck is all about controlling the board, as opposed to, it's controlling the board while playing minions as opposed to controlling the board with just spells like Warrior Control does. Anyway, on to the mulligans. So we've got Colma on the top and then Dapper on the bottom. For Colma, I think we just take out I think you take out everything but the Harvest, because you want to coin the Harvest. Alright, so he's giving himself options. That's interesting. And for Dapper, yeah, you just keep the Web Spinner. That keep from Colma is actually interesting, and I think the reason why he did that was that he's going to mulligan that one card, which is just useless, which is Arcanite. The Korkron might be useful, and the Loot Hoarder means that if he gets another 2-drop, and there's a lot of 2-drops in this deck, then he can use that with the coin instead. So it's a very interesting mulligan. Now the turn 1 Web Spinner is the strongest turn 1 in the entire deck. Now Dapper was actually debating playing the tracking there, because this plays into Cruel Taskmaster, but you may want to save tracking for a bit later. Especially considering, I mean, normally you wouldn't know what kind of warrior this is, but it is Colma, so he had a fairly decent guess. Now, for this turn, I think you just Hero Power pass. There's not many good plays you can do here. You can go the Iron Fur next turn. Yeah, it's just going to Hero Power pass. Alright. Colma has a very, very good curve here. As if you notice, we got, for once we have the non-acebreaker player on the bottom. That's simply because of video resolution and things like that. Usually put the higher quality video on the bottom because then it's much easier to look at. But anyway, so the keep on the Loot Hoarder did pay off here because he got the Cruel Taskmaster. Fortunately for Dapper, we do have the 3-drop coming off that web spinner, the Iron Fur. The other debatable play here is to Iron Beak Owl and then use the boar, but you may want to save that for something like an Armor Smith or Acolyte or even a Harvest Golem or things like that, although he might end up playing it. It's very, very difficult when playing into this because warriors can play a lot of silenced targets, so you need to try and figure out which one you want to be using it on. Now, for this turn, I should imagine we're just going to see the Harvest Golem and then trade his entire board into this 3-3. Trade first, obviously, so that you draw. Yeah, he's going to draw first, see if he gets a Cruel Task. It's an Acolyte. He's definitely going to play the Harvest of the Acolyte, I should imagine, because there's a next couple turns are set. And he has a Whirlwind in his hand, so he might as well play the Acolyte with the Whirlwind. Alright, turn 4 snaps, and then next turn is most likely going to be the Loatheb. Got a fairly basic curve from Dapperatchik here. Whereas Colma has a very, very weird curve. Now, we could see a Acolyte and then attack the 2-7 and execute it, because this is mid-range Hunter and he might be setting up a Houndmaster play. The other play is to go face with Corcoran. I think killing the snaps might be a bit better. We'll see what he ends up going with. Yeah, he's going to go with the execute play. This is playing around Houndmaster, which I do entirely agree with. You want to be able to set up your Azure Drake for next turn. Okay, so Dapper doesn't want to play the Loatheb here. Wow, he's really digging. So I'm guessing the intention is to play the bow and then kill the Acolyte. So he just wants to play double tracking to make sure that play is correct. Okay, I can see that. Yeah, this plays around Cruel Taskmaster in particular. Yeah, Azure Drake is now a pretty simple play here. We are going to see this Loatheb at some point, and it is going to be quite difficult to deal with. Although, I think now less so because of that Corcoran. Oh, we do see a Kodo off the top. I think Loatheb is just the most powerful play here. He could Loatheb and Boar, and then kill the 4-4. Okay, it's just going to pass. That's debatable whether or not you actually kill the 4-4 or not. Because then it doesn't play around Cruel Taskmaster. We do have the Cruel Task, but it's one of the craziest draws he could have got, I think. Now, there's a couple plays here. He could go Corcoran and then run the Harvest Golem and the Corcoran into the 5-5, or he could play Cruel Taskmaster and trade and then armor up. I think the Corcoran's more mana efficient. This is interesting. Yeah, he's going to go for the Corcoran. I mean, not the Corcoran, the Cruel Task. He's going for both. Okay. So he's trying to put pressure on here instead of armoring up. That makes sense. Basically, there were 3 combinations of plays there. There was using the Corcoran and the armor up, which is more mana efficient, and you get the Azure Drake on the board. But then on the flip side, you've got this play or the armor up play to bluff Shield Slam, but the problem with trying to bluff a card is that this particular deck list is fairly well known and it's very, very easy to research, so he's got to assume his opponent knows he's not playing Shield Slam, even though some other Temple Warriors do. So bluffing the armor has very, very little value. We're going to see the double buzzer desperation play. Don't normally see these, but sometimes you have to. Alright, so what cards did you get? Hellmaster. Probably going to play the owl and then bore that and then run the bow into the 4-3. Double Houndmaster, and the other card is a creeper. He does have a very good board here, but this is going to get whirlwinded. Yeah, this is going to get whirlwinded no matter what, I should imagine. He could also play out the Spellbreaker, just to apply pressure, although I think playing out the Kodo is better if you want to apply pressure. He does have the Grom into Inner Rage combo next turn for 12. So if Dapper takes any damage this turn, he's going to lose. This is one of the reasons why it's so good to have that combo in the deck. Yeah, he does have the ability to clear it. I think you still go for it though. There's a lot of direct in the deck, and you might as well still go for it. Actually, the Arcanite, I think you can Arcanite the 3-5 so that you don't look like you have lethal. I think that's better. Yeah, you Arcanite the 3-5. It doesn't. It shows that you don't have lethal, and then next turn you do have it. The one problem with this is that a taunted beast will completely stop this. And at this point, I think he's going to be running out as many taunts as he possibly can. The Misha is pretty big here because it means he can put 2 taunts down. And this is where it gets a little sketchy. There's the Argent Commander. Spellbreaker looks pretty good here. You could Spellbreaker the Creeper. Gets a lot of buffs off it. I think an interesting way of doing this would be... The problem is you have to do this over multiple turns. That's the interesting thing about this, is that you have to do this over multiple turns. That's difficult. This is actually a very, very difficult series of plays because he's 1 mana off being able to kill him next turn. So, are we going to see the Whirlwind here? The Whirlwind and the Archon Commander? Yeah. Alright, so we are seeing the Whirlwind and the Archon Commander here. That was quite a tricky play because he's trying to figure out how he can kill his opponent next turn. And so he's just trying to apply as much pressure as possible while keeping the board fairly clear. The problem is we're going to see another beast with taunt come down here, along with a kill command to kill this, I should imagine. Oh, we have High Mane. High Mane with taunt and then trade the 4/2s, I think is a very, very good way of doing this. Because you're practically going all in at that point, but you kind of have to. So I think the High Mane with taunt is correct. Actually, do High Mane with taunt and then just go face with the 4/2, try and pressure him. Because then, if he doesn't kill the High Mane, then he's going to take... If he silences the High Mane, he will take 14, 18, plus the kill command, which is 23. Nah, he can't win on that turn. He needs Animal Companion. Oh wow, this is really risky. There's actually lethal draws now. That is not a lethal draw, but it's getting pretty close. I think I would have gone for the Garrosh there. I mean, not the Garrosh, the Grommash. Because then you get your damage in past taunt, and next turn you can Spellbreaker any taunt he plays, and then just kill him. So I think that was a slight error. Because it means you don't play around the double taunt. It means you don't play around taunts in general, actually. He actually could lose this game now. This is getting pretty frisky. Yeah, that was a top deck win. I think that was a pretty big mistake. If he had played the charge the 12 attack charge, he would have won that game guaranteed. But instead, that was fairly risky, you could say. Moving on to the intermission between second game and first game. Now, Colma did take the first game there. That was a bit of an interesting section, sort of at the end there. Colma did have lethal for a long time, or set up lethal. He didn't actually have lethal. He had set up lethal for about 4 turns, and the taunts really did mess with him. I actually think that the top deck is what won him the game there, but if he had used... Let's see, we've already seen 1 Animal Companion and also 1 Houndmaster. So, if he uses the charge... Is it Grommash or Garrosh? This always confuses me. It's Grommash. Hellscream. No, they're both Hellscreams. Grom. Whatever. Anyway, if he uses the Grom, then he can Inner Rage it, deal 12, take him to 1. And then if he taunts the Highmane with one of his last taunts, he can Spellbreaker and then Arcanite Reaper for lethal. That's guaranteed, pretty much. You need double taunt to stop it, and if he double taunts, then you might be able just to use your giant charging Hellscream to completely destroy his second taunt. So he needs Hunter's Mark and 2 taunts for you to not win. And a way of killing the Hunter's Mark without losing a taunt. So that's a lot of requirements for him to survive that turn. Whereas playing it the way he did, 1 taunt stops him. Because he silences a taunt, then he takes his opponent to 1 and he actually can't kill him. And he would have lost that game if he hadn't top decked the 4-3. So, slight misplay on Colma's part. It's one of those things which it's a slight mistake that actually causes a big impact. And that's why the top deck was actually necessary at the end there. But anyway, so the deck that Dapper is bringing in here looks like a token variation. Now this particular token deck is running double Spectral Knight and Cairn, running a slightly more mid-game heavy lineup. Also running 1 Argent Squire. And only the Violet Teachers, no Yetis, which is fairly standard at the moment, actually, although some people do run the multiple 4-drops. So it's a bit of an interesting list. The double Spectral Knight, Noah's Eurodrake is also interesting. We do obviously have the Lotheb, this is normal, and I'm really curious to see how this matches up against the Warrior deck. So, on to the mulligans. For Colma, that's a very easy mulligan, just a bunch of high drops. Now, for Dapper, this is a difficult mulligan. I think you mulligan the Force, and do you mulligan the Druid? You can't get a turn 2 Druid here. I think mulliganing is fine because you're playing against Warrior, and he might have Execute. So you want the Innervate because it ramps you up in general, but you may not want something that slow. You're going to want something like a Cairn or a Violet Teacher. I think it's personal preference. I think I might have kept the Claw there. Maybe. Anyway, Colma does have the turn 2 Amani Berserker being shut down by the turn 2 Wrath. This is the story of all 2-3s. As we do have the Acolyte of Pain coming out here, which puts Dapper in a very weird position. Oh, the Innervate Spectral Knight, that is huge. Innervate Spectral Knight is completely brutal. It's very hard to kill one of these things. Very hard. We have the War Axes. I think he might end up using the War Axes to just run into this 4-6. He's going to take 12 from it, though. That's a lot. He could also Whirlwind just to draw. See what he gets. But you're against Token. This is a really hard turn. You could Axe the 4-3 and then armor up and go face with the Acolyte and hope he trades the Acolyte so you can Axe it again. You could also go Kokoro and just go face with everything. Yeah, that's what he's doing. He's betting on his opponent not having a second Wrath. Oh, the double Spectral Knight. This is crazy. I think you actually kill the 1-3 here. Because if you kill the 4-3, then he whirlwinds and he draws a bunch. Yeah, he's killing the Acolyte. It's very sensible. Oh, Spellbreaker into Execute. That is a crazy combination. Spellbreaker into Execute. That's how you kill a Spectral Knight. Swipe doesn't do as much as I think you want it to at this point. The real question is, do you play the Power of the Wild as a 3-2 or as a buff? I think you play it as a buff. I'm pretty sure you play it as a buff, because he hasn't played an axe yet, so he could have an axe. And if you buff it, it means that it trades with one of the 4-3s if he decides to trade. So he is going to play the swipe. That's interesting. I don't think I would have played the swipe there. I think I would have gone for the buffs. They both get blown out by axe, but then he would have a 2-1 on the board. He would be a card down though, so I think that's difficult. That is pretty tricky. No, you'd be down a power. You'd still have swipe in your hand. I don't know. Maybe, I mean, swipe is not that good in this matchup because of all the acolytes and armor smiths and things like that. That's difficult. I think I would have gone for the board play and saved the removal as opposed to going for the removal and saving the board. We'll see how it ends up working out, as we do have the whirlwind and a second axe capable of taking this out. He could just go face with these. He's got so many weapons. Is he going to play the Arcanite here? Yeah, he's going to play the Arcanite. And end up probably going face with this, or just setting up a kill on something a bit larger. Pretty much no one plays Harrison Jones, so setting up an Arcanite Reaper is pretty sensible here. Oh, we have the Power of the Wild. Yeah, this is an execute target. This is most likely getting executed. He could double Whirlwind, kill the 3-4. Double Whirlwind execute. Never mind. Actually, does he still double Whirlwind execute? Yeah, if you axe the 3-4 and then double Whirlwind execute, you clear the board. The problem is you put a bunch of cards into this. Something else he could do is only one Whirlwind. He's debating the second Whirlwind here, I think. Because if you're going to play the Cruel Task... Yeah, he's debating the second Whirlwind. Because basically, if you're going to play the Cruel Taskmaster, then you play the first Whirlwind anyway. So, there's something which is technically... I mean, it's technically incorrect to play part of your turn before the rest of it, but it does help you think. Which is, if you play the obvious part of your turn first, the part of your turn that you're going to do definitely, it gives you a bit of extra thinking time on some of the other stuff. Question is, are we going to see Taunt or Cat? We are going to see the Taunt. Alright. The Taunt Druid. The Druid of the bear as opposed to Druid of the kitty. The Slam is quite good here because it does draw, and that's the main point. And the Argent Commander is huge. Now he's playing the Argent Commander sort of freely because that is his only threat, and he's not going to combo range by doing this. So he just wants to get as much damage in with this 4-2 as is humanly possible. Innervate. Innervate is absolutely terrible for Dapper at this point. I would almost consider hero powering this 4-2, I think. You're taking a lot of damage. Yeah, he's thinking about it as well. It's so painful to even have that as a consideration. Wait, that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Alright. Now, the problem he has right now is that he has to kill this 4-5. If he doesn't kill this 4-5, he's dead to combo. So I think he has to Cruel Taskmaster his 4-2. Or actually, is the Divine Shield more valuable than a 4-3? Yeah, I think it is. So you play Corcoran. Actually, what am I talking about? You can Cruel Task other stuff. You don't need to Cruel Task your own things. Yeah, that's fine. You don't need to Cruel Task your own things as a buff. It's only a 1 health difference, it's not 2. So yeah, that works out pretty well for him. He's now really far ahead. And if there's no good draw from Dapper here, the Loatheb, I think that's game. We don't really have a way back from this. He's taking, what, 12, 13. Yeah, that's just lethal. The 5 mana Inner Rage. Are we going to see the 5 mana Inner Rage BM? Oh, we got the concede. Yeah, that was a pretty one-sided second game there. So anyway, that was actually the first 2-0 we've had on Versus Series. We're up to episode 4 now, I do believe. That was the first 2-0. So that was interesting. The first game was actually extremely close. The second game was... the second game did come down to top deck wars. That Argent Commander off the slam, I think, is what changed that game around. It was very, very close, and both players didn't really have action in their hand. I mean, Dapper did have the 4/5 Black Knight, but nothing really crazy. Didn't have like an Ancient Allure or something, and Colma didn't get anything. So that slam into Argent Commander probably won him the game. Whereas if Dapper had top deck an Ancient Allure, probably would have won him the game as well. So it's a bit interesting that these sort of more tempo-y decks do come down to these very, very small differences in sequencing, and also just top deck sometimes. That's how tempo mirrors tend to work. Like the new token druid is very tempo focused. It's not even mid-rangey anymore. It's very, very tempo focused. It's all about running sticky minions that stay on the board and trade and trade and trade, and then piling up damage and killing you with the combo. Whereas Tempo Warrior, as the name implies, is about doing something similar, where you're playing minions that don't really die very easily, that are very, very irritating, like Armor Smith and Acolyte of Pain, things like that, while using weapons to clear the board. And it really was highlighted in those 2 games, the sort of style that that deck actually does have. So overall, it was actually a pretty good series, even though it was a one-sided series, technically. As it was 2-0. It was a fairly one-sided series in terms of the final score, but both games were actually very, very close, and considering we had a bit of a shorter series this particular week, it was actually a very, very good series between the 2 games we did see. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, put it in the comment section below. I am on Twitter and Twitch, and whenever I do go live on Twitch, it shows up on the Twitter thing. So if you want to see when I'm streaming tournament runs, then I'll put the little Twitter thing in the description as well. But as for now, this has been Jotto, signing off.